History in Middle-earth is shaped by fragile choices, moments where a single decision changed the fate of nations. Today we turn to the second branch of our question: what if Gandalf took the One Ring? Once again, we find ourselves in Bag End on April 13th, with Frodo offering Gandalf the One Ring. But this time, Gandalf does not refuse. He takes the ring, not only out of pity for the world, but because he believes that he can claim full mastery over it. The ring is given freely, not seized by force, and Gandalf believes that because of this he can wield its power without losing himself to its will. Receiving the ring from Frodo, Gandalf immediately places it upon his finger and claims it as his own. The consequences are immediate. At once the two remaining bearers of the elven rings, Elrond and Galadriel, become aware of what Gandalf has done, and far away in the depths of Mordor, in his tower of Barad-dûr, Sauron becomes aware as well. He knows that the One Ring has been claimed, and by who. Now fear comes upon the Dark Lord, for Gandalf is one of the few beings in Middle-earth who could truly challenge him outright. Yet Sauron does not act in haste. He does not immediately send forth the Nazgul to reclaim the ring, knowing that should he do so, Gandalf might turn them against him. Instead, Sauron hastens his plans and prepares for war. What then would Gandalf do? Tolkien himself gives us the answer. He tells us that Gandalf, if he ever claimed the One Ring, would seek to build a great power, an empire, an army, with which to overthrow Sauron. Gandalf begins at once, starting where he stands, in the Shire. Even having claimed the One Ring as his own, Gandalf is still the Gandalf the hobbits know. He does not force them to join him. Instead, he asks for volunteers. Using the combined influence of the One Ring and the Elven Ring Narya, Gandalf persuades many of the younger Hobbit generation to follow him, those who grew up hearing Bilbo's tales of adventure with the wizard. Chief among them are the Tooks and the Brandybucks. Frodo would have joined as well, but Gandalf refuses to allow it, for Frodo's sake and for his own. Gandalf does not wish him to remain near the ring. Instead, he asks Frodo to stay at Bag End and continue recruiting among the hobbits. Sam, as ever, remains with Frodo. Merry and Pippin, however, go with Gandalf. Gandalf leads his small host north to Bree, where he begins recruiting among the Bringlanders. Soon after, Aragorn arrives at the Prancing Pony and meets with Gandalf. At first, Aragorn is weary of Gandalf's use of the One Ring, but Gandalf convinces him that this is their best, perhaps their only, option. He assures Aragorn that because the ring was given freely and not taken by force, he will be able to wield it without being mastered by it. Gandalf also wishes Aragorn at his side, not only as a friend, but for the strength he brings as the chieftain of the Dunedain and heir to the thrones of Arnor and Gondor. Once Aragorn is convinced, Gandalf sends him north to gather the Dunedain, while he himself leads the rest of his followers to the south shores of Lake Evendim, to the ancient ruins of Annúminas, the ancient capital of Gondor. There, Gandalf sets his people to work rebuilding the city. Aragorn arrives a few days later with some 20 Dunedain, having already sent others to gather the rest. Gandalf has the Dunedain begin training the Bree-landers and the hobbits in the arts of war. Gandalf then turns his thoughts westward, making plans to journey to the Blue Mountains to recruit dwarves to aid in the rebuilding of Annúminas. Before they depart, elves from Rivendell arrive at the city. Elrond, having felt the claiming of the One Ring, has sent them to learn what has come to pass. Gandalf meets with them, but they are unwilling to agree with his course. Unable to find common ground, the elves depart, returning to Rivendell to report to Elrond. Gandalf and Aragorn continue their preparations and soon set out for the Blue Mountains, leaving the Dunedain in command while they are gone. In the Blue Mountains, Gandalf once again draws upon the power of Narya, persuading many of the dwarves there to come to Annúminas and aid in its restoration. As the dwarves arrive, the work quickens. Stone rises upon stone, and the ancient city of Annúminas begins at last to live again. Once back in Annúminas, Gandalf and Aragorn set out again, this time for Isengard. On their return journey, they meet Radagast the Brown, who tells Gandalf that Saruman wishes to speak with him. Gandalf knows that Saruman must be dealt with sooner or later, and so he goes, taking Aragorn with him. Upon arriving at Isengard, Aragorn remains in the lower halls while Gandalf climbs to one of the higher chambers to meet with Saruman. It does not take Saruman long to realize the truth that Gandalf not only possesses the One Ring, but he has claimed it and is using its power to build an empire with which to challenge Sauron. Outraged, Saruman attacks, but he is no match for Gandalf. Saruman is slain. Hearing the sounds of the struggle above, Aragorn hastens up the stairs to learn what has happened. Gandalf tells him that Saruman attacked first, leaving him no choice but to strike him down. Under normal circumstances, Aragorn might have questioned this, but Gandalf's influence upon him, shaped now by the power of his rings, is too strong. Aragorn does not doubt him. As Gandalf searches the tower, he discovers the Palantiri of Isengard. Wrapping it in his cloak, he conceals it away, intending to learn of its secrets in time. Through Saruman's record, Gandalf also uncovers his plans to dominate Rohan. Riding swiftly to Edoras, Gandalf frees King Theoden and gains the loyalty of the Rohirrim to his cause. He orders Theoden to station a company of riders at the now empty Isengard, guarding the western approaches against any assault Sauron might attempt. Theoden also sends thousands of riders and great stores of supplies north to Numenus to aid in its rebuilding. While still in Edoras, Gandalf receives word from Denethor, steward of Gondor, demanding to know by what right Gandalf has taken control of Isengard, a fortress that once belonged to Gondor before it was entrusted to Saruman. Gandalf replies that the rightful heir of Arnor and Gondor is returning, and that Denethor should prepare to receive him. Denethor answers with fury. He declares that Gondor has no king and needs no king. He spreads word that Aragorn is a pretender and that the line of kings is broken. Though Denethor would gladly have marched against Rohan for siding with Gandalf and Aragorn, he knows such a move would be folly. Through the Palantiri, he has seen that Sauron is preparing for war, and that an attack upon Rohan would leave Gondor exposed. Instead, Denethor turns his efforts inward and begins preparing Gondor for the war he knows is coming. On his return journey to Numenus, Aragorn stops in Rivendell. Following Gandalf's counsel, Aragorn asks for the shards of Narsil to be reforged and that he be given the remaining heirlooms of Isildur. Elrond does not trust the path Gandalf has chosen. He knows too well the corrupting power of the ring. Yet he trusts Aragorn and believes that he will strive to do what is right. Elrond also fears what Gandalf might do should he refuse Aragorn's his birthright, and what such refusal might bring upon his people. At last Elrond yields. He orders the smiths of Rivendell to reforge the shards of Narsil, and from them Anduin is made once more. When the blade is finished, Aragorn takes it up and departs. To Elrond's horror, some of his own people go with him, among them Arwen, who follows out of love for Aragorn, and her brothers, who follow out of trust in him. Upon Aragorn's return to Annúminas, Gandalf crowns him King of Arnor. Over the next following years, both Sauron and Gandalf continue to build their strength. Sauron gathers his full might within Mordor. Easterling dwarves from the east, the Haradrim and the people of Umbar answer his call. His orcs and troll armies swell rapidly. Unlike in the original timeline, Sauron does not dare attack Gondor during this time. He fears to commit his force too soon would weaken him enough that he could not withstand Gandalf's armies should they march against him. In Annúminas, Gandalf appears to be no more than an advisor to King Aragorn, but in truth he is the true power behind the throne. For now, Gandalf prefers to seem as he always has, Gandalf the Grey, a counselor and a guide, yet he is more than that now. While mastering the power of the One Ring, Gandalf continues to wield Narya, inflaming the hearts of the people of Middle-earth towards anger against Sauron and loyalty to Aragorn. Through the ring's influence, he begins to dominate the wills of many, drawing them towards Aragorn and the rising kingdom of Arnor. Dwarves from Erebor, elves from Mirkwood and Lothlorien, and men from Rohan come to Numenus. Among the first riders Theoden sends is Eomer, who soon becomes one of Aragorn's chief commanders. Though Gandalf has declared Aragorn king of both Arnor and Gondor, Denethor refuses to acknowledge the claim. Yet he cannot silence the growing rumors of the new kingdom, nor stop his people from answering it. Many leave Gondor to join Aragorn, among them Faramir and his rangers of Ithilien. Over all of this, Elrond, Galadriel, and Círdan watch and wait. At first, Círdan urges Elrond and Galadriel to depart Middle-earth and sail from the Grey Havens, yet neither will abandon their realms, and both fear what Gandalf might do should he learn that they intend to leave. As the years pass, both Mordor and Arnor continue to grow in size and power. Though Sauron still does not strike openly at Gondor or Rohan, he begins instead to apply pressure elsewhere. Small armies of Easterlings are sent north to raid Erebor, the Iron Hills, Dale, and Lake Town. As these attacks persist, the kings of Erebor and Dale make a hard choice. Taking all of their people who are willing to go, they abandon their lands and lead them west to Arnor. With Erebor and Dale emptied, Sauron turns his gaze towards the last free kingdom of the north, the woodland realm of Thranduil. Once again, Sauron sends small forces of Easterlings, but now he also unleashes the orcs of Dol Guldur. Harried on all sides, and with his numbers already reduced by those who have fled to Arnor, Thranduil is forced to abandon his realm. Thranduil leads part of his people south to Lothlorien, seeking the protection of Galadriel and her ring. The rest, led by Legolas, journey west to Numenus and swear themselves to Aragorn. Rohan soon meets a similar fate. Beset by raids, border skirmishes, and the ever-growing pressure of the Eye, Theoden abandons the open plains of his fathers. He leads his people to the strongholds of Isengard and Helm's Deep, and many continue on to Arnor. While Sauron consolidates his conquest in the north, Gandalf directs Aragorn in the restoration of Arnor to its former glory. Numenus is rebuilt and once more becomes the capital of the renewed kingdom. In the years that follow, Aragorn's realm grows into the greatest kingdom in Middle-earth, stretching from the Blue Mountains in the west to the Misty Mountains in the east, from the northern borders of the old realm of Angmar to the White Mountains and the Gap of Rohan in the south. As Sauron's power continues to grow, Gandalf has Aragorn station ever greater forces at Isengard and Helm's Deep, fortifying the Gap of Rohan against any assault from Mordor. At last Middle-earth stands divided into three great powers. In the east lies Mordor, in the west stands Arnor, and in the south Gondor endures, preparing itself for the war that all know is coming. At last Sauron is ready to strike. Led by the Witch King, the armies of Mordor pour forth from the Minas Morgul and sweep across Osgiliath, seizing the bridge before Boromir can destroy it. Boromir retreats with his men to the walls of the Pelennor. For years, Boromir has labored in repairing and manning the wall, and his preparation now bears fruit. The Witch King's forces fail to take the Pelennor at their first assault. Yet Boromir does not have the strength to hold the wall for long. As in the original timeline, the southern fiefdoms are unable to send many men, fearing an attack from the Corsairs of Umbar. Soon the Witch King's host is joined by Easterlings and orcs from the Black Gate, Dol Guldur, and Moria. This vast army of Mordor at last overwhelms the walls of the Pelennor, driving the defenders back towards Minas Tirith. As the hearts of Gondor's men begin to fail, Gandalf appears. Clothed in grey, he rides towards the city upon a midnight black horse, his staff in one hand and Glamdring in the other. Upon one hand Narya gleams so brightly that few notice the plain golden ring upon the other. To most upon the wall it seems as though one of the Valar themselves has come to their aid, but to those with keener sight a different truth is revealed. About Gandalf clings a shadow, and to them he appears not as a Valar come in mercy, but as a Dark Lord riding to claim his due. Almost at once chaos erupts within the ranks of Mordor. Gandalf, wielding the One Ring, bends the Nazgul fully to his will and commands them to turn their forces against those of their former master. Across the battlefield, Mordor's armies begin to tear themselves apart. As the fighting rages, a new host appears, riding down from the north. At its head rides Aragorn, King of Arnor. At his side is Éomer and Faramir. Behind them thunder the riders of Rohan, clad in green and gold. Following close behind comes a great host of men, bearing shields marked with the insignia of Arnor. Among them march hobbits, clad in mail, fire burning in their eyes. Last of all come the dwarves of the Blue Mountains, led by Thorin Stormhelm. Aragorn and the riders of Rohan crash into the exposed flanks of Mordor's host, cutting them down and driving straight towards the gate. Before the army can recover, the main strength of Aragorn's army is upon them. At that moment, the gates of Minas Tirith are thrown open, and Boromir leads the soldiers of Gondor out to join the battle. With more than half of their forces turned against them, and the armies of the west cutting through what remains, the survivors of Mordor flee towards the river. They hope to find the corsairs of Umbar, who were meant to arrive and turn the tide. The harbor is indeed filled with ships, but they are not the black ships of the corsairs. They fly the banner of the King of Arnor. Gandalf, having taken the Palantiri of Isengard, wrestled it from Sauron's control long ago and used it for years to watch the east. When he saw Sauron's armies begin to move, he knew the Dark Lord was coming for the ring. His ring. At once Gandalf ordered Aragorn to march with his army he had been preparing, and to send the fleet that had been built along the coast to intercept the corsairs of Umbar. The corsairs are destroyed, and the fleet of Arnor sails up the river, carrying the men of the southern fiefdoms close behind. With their arrival, Sauron's armies are completely surrounded and utterly destroyed. With this victory, Gandalf once again proclaims Aragorn king of both Gondor and Arnor. This time there is nothing Denethor can do, for Aragorn has saved the city, and the people themselves cry out for him to be their king. Once Aragorn is crowned, Gandalf tells him that the hour they have long awaited has come. With Gandalf at his side, Aragorn leads the armies of the west to the Black Gate of Mordor. There all the remaining host of Mordor stands assembled, and at their head stands Sauron himself. For a long while Gandalf and Sauron simply regard one another, neither moving, neither striking. To the armies of the west, Gandalf once again appears as one of the Valar, standing in power and light against the Dark Lord. But to Elrond, watching from afar, the truth is far darker. He sees not a champion facing evil, but two Dark Lords contending for mastery of Middle-earth, each seeking to rule it completely and to be worshipped as a god by its people. At last, Gandalf and Sauron charge towards one another, and their armies surge forward with them. In the battle that follows, both bring their full power to bear, and for a time it seems as though the very earth itself will break apart. In the end, Gandalf gains the upper hand. He casts Sauron down and ends his threat to Middle-earth forever. With their lord destroyed, the armies of Mordor either flee or surrender. With this final victory, Aragorn is proclaimed king of all Middle-earth. But the wise understand the truth. Watching Sauron fall at Gandalf's hand, Elrond knows that hope has truly passed from the world. Riding swiftly, Elrond reaches the Grey Havens, where Galadriel and Celeborn and Círdan await him together. Together they depart Middle-earth, sailing west to Valinor and taking their rings of power with them. To the people of the world, Aragorn may be their king, but Gandalf is something far greater. He raised their king, gathered their armies, and destroyed the Dark Lord. And in doing so, Gandalf becomes their god.